All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Freddie, and today I'm going to be talking about the seven wonders of the ancient world. Now, I've always had a thing for architecture, as you guys can tell from last time's presentation. And so today I want to just talk briefly to you guys about some of the greatest accomplishments our ancestors, well, previous human beings from like the ancient times have built. And so I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to show you guys a map, and then I'm going to go over some interesting facts about them, some things you guys might already know, some things you guys might not know. But either way, it's pretty cool seeing how all of this came to be and how we remember it today. Okay, so just so you all know, the ancient wonders were actually all in the same area. So if you picture yourself in a cruise in the Mediterranean Sea, and you just go along the border of the sea, every single wonder is in like at least one point of like the land around the sea. So, and if you guys notice carefully too, a lot of these structures seem to be influenced by the Greek. The Greeks are actually the people who termed it like the phrase seven wonders of the world. And a lot of them seem to be influenced by Greek mythology, like Temple of Artemis, Zeus, and Rhodes, which is a statue of Helios, the Greek god of sun. Okay. And yeah, so I'm just going to go on now. Okay, so the first one on our list is the Great Pyramid of Giza, and I think everyone knows this one fairly well. It was built between 2700 BC and 2500 BC, and one of the interesting things about it is that it is the only ancient wonder of the world that is still remaining today. It has not been destroyed, although it has been messed with. So it was actually completed with 2 million stones, and it was actually built within or below 30 years, so around 28 years. So each stone weighs more than a ton. And so in order to build it, like in 28 years, they had to work like day and night, like at least like carrying around 7 stones per hour, I think. And a lot of this information I read from previous years and recently on history.com. And so all of these things come from our interpretations from Greek texts. And so yeah, that's where they all come from. And another thing about this is that it was designed for the intention of aerial view. So if you look at it from a helicopter and an airplane from above, it is meant to represent sun rays for their Greek god of the sun. So each like layer represents sun rays. Okay, the next one on our list is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, and this was built 600 BC. I find this one to be the most mysterious one of them all because although there are references to it in Greek text, they're actually not first-hand experiences. So because of that, archaeologists have determined that it might not actually have existed to begin with. So this temple actually was built by the king of Babylon. Yes, I would pronounce his name, but it's so weird. I'm gonna call him King Nabu. But it was built by him for his wife, who was homesick for her homeland in previous time Iraq, and well, modern day Iraq. Back then it was Mesopotamia. But so it was built, and the walls were said to be 75 feet high. And in order for the plants to be pumped with water, they would have had to build a pumping system that can go up to 75 feet high, which at that time was almost impossible to build with their technology. And that also leads archaeologists today to believe that it might have never existed because of that type of technology. Okay, the next one on our list is the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus. This one was built at 550 BC, and it is actually built several times. So the temple you see there was one of the prettiest ones they built. So I believe it was the second time that they built it that was the prettiest temple they've built. After that, they started building it just to rebuild it and didn't really care about the texture of it because people kept on breaking it or like messing with it. And back then, pillars weren't connected with concrete or any kind of cement like that. It was just placed on top of each other, so it was really unstable. And because of that, earthquakes would occasionally break it down, and also wars broke it down a lot of the time too. So temples, the pillars were actually 60 feet high, and there were 127 of them. Okay, the next one is a statue of Zeus at Olympia, and this was actually built in the ancient times where the Olympics were actually held the first time, and that was the city of Olympia, and it was built there commemorance to the Olympics and obviously the Greek god Zeus, and this was built 432 BC. So an interesting thing about it is that it was said to be the statue itself was said to be 40 feet high, and it was so big that the head did not actually fit inside the temple itself. So they had to improvise by adding like an uneven layer on top, but no one really noticed it because it was so beautiful. In fact, the statue itself was made out of gold and ivory, and that made him stand out a lot more. A lot of the statues back then were built out of gold and ivory because they wanted their gods to stand out amongst everything else around them, which makes him a wonder because it was beautiful. Another really interesting about it is that it was said in text that when it was completed, the actual temple, that lightning struck the temple, and the Greeks took that as a sign of acceptance from the Greek god Zeus. So that was interesting. The next one is the mausoleum of Halicarnassus, built between 353 BC and 350 BC. This one was a little weird. It's really strange. This one was built by the queen Artemisia of Mesopotamia as well, for her king who had died. And interesting fact, they were actually brother and sister. And so she built this temple, which is actually just a giant tomb for him, to remember him and to make his greatness and his power stand out. If you guys notice carefully, you can see that his tomb is actually at the very top of the temple. That's where it was placed. And one of the creepiest things I think I've heard amongst all of these is that his wife, Artemisia, was so grief-stricken by his death that she actually drank his ashes while they built the temple for him, because she just wanted to remember him that badly. She loved him, he was her husband and her brother too. The next one is the Colossus of Rhodes, built between 292 BC and 280 BC. And the thing with this one is you can picture this as being the Statue of Liberty of the ancient times. It has very similar qualities to the Statue of Liberty, which the French actually took from a lot of these kinds of structures that were built back then. And running out of time, I'm sorry. Yeah. But so yeah, it was said to be really, really high, 75 feet high. Okay, and the last one is the Lighthouse of Alexandria, built between 280 BC and 247 BC. So back then, they didn't have technology like electricity, so they used fire, like a massive fire at the very top of the lighthouse to signal ships crossing through the Nile, which is very, very populated back then because it was at their peak of their sort of industrial kind of revolution in a way, where they started where they started doing a lot of merchanting and trading. And that is the last one. Actually, if you guys notice real quick, the bottom was built as an octagon. The middle center is a square, and the top is a cylinder. So it was really interesting that they did that. It was it's very difficult to build these kinds of things, especially back then, and I find that very beautiful. Okay, these are my references. So today I just talked to you guys about the seven wonders of the ancient world, some facts about them, some things you guys might have already known, and I showed you guys where they were previously placed and where they existed back in the ancient times. And also, just so you know, they don't exist anymore at all. There are some remains left, but they're completely gone. The only one that still exists is the Pyramid of Giza, and that's about it. Thank you guys.